My name is Joanne Hayes-White, and I serve as your fire chief. We're delighted to have you here today. One of the main reasons we're gathered here today is we're nearing the approach of the 1906 Great Earthquake and Fire. So it's timely that we get together to honor those men and women who lost their lives trying to protect our city, but also to remind ourselves that we still have much more to do as a city to ensure that we address consequences of an earthquake at the magnitude of what we've seen recently in Haiti and in Chile. We're standing in front of one of the greatest legacies. It's an important part of San Francisco's history, but more importantly, it's a critical piece of infrastructure for our city. This is Pump Station 2. That is one of our fire boats. And you'll learn today a little bit about our auxiliarized water supply system. There was a great article in today's Chronicle about that system, which is comprised of 2 pump stations, 2 tanks, our Jones Street tank and our Ashbury tank, 1 reservoir up at Twin Peaks, 177 cisterns, 135 miles of pipe, and 2 fire boats. One of the most instrumental figures in the history of our fire department is one of my predecessors, Chief Dennis Sullivan. He is also the father of the modern high-pressure water system, or the auxiliarized water supply system. Chief Sullivan believed that the city did not have adequate access or resources to fight fires in 1906. And it's interesting to note that although there was a large seismic activity, it truly was the fires that raged for 3 days that caused significant damage to our city due to the lack of water supply. Chief Sullivan's plan carried on, and what you have here is the auxiliarized water supply system. It's a dedicated system, high-pressure system for fighting fires. Our forefathers knew of our vulnerability and believed that having proper infrastructure was the key to being prepared. San Francisco, as you know, is a peninsula. It has great challenges in terms of fighting fires. We have heavy winds at times, like a day like today. We have a lot of properties that are wood frame construction, and we have what's called zero lot line separation. Buildings are attached. As you know, we're also one of the most densely populated cities in America. As first responders, we always need to be prepared, and we encourage our residents to do so. We learned after 1989 that we had a group of people, our citizenry, that wanted to assist in the event of any large-scale disaster. The San Francisco Fire Department is proud to have trained approximately 20,000 members, many of them standing behind me, in our very worthwhile comprehensive neighborhood emergency response team training program. I'm delighted today to introduce a number of people that are here with us. It's all about partnerships. The fire department and the city is all about working as a team. I will soon introduce our leader of the city, Mayor Newsom, but I'd like to at first acknowledge the partnerships throughout our city, other city departments, including the San Francisco Police Department. We have with us, and he'll be speaking shortly, Chief Gascón, the Department of Emergency Management Director, Vicki Hennessy, the Department of Public Works, our Port of San Francisco, MTA, the San Francisco Unified School District, Recreation and Parks, Mr. Ed Harrington I saw from the PUC, Public Utilities Commission, our Sheriff's Department, Mr. Ed Lee from our City Administrator's Office, and I know Ann Cronenberg is here representing the Department of Public Health. Those are our city partners. We also have many community partners, and I'm delighted today to have with us the CEO of the American Red Cross Bay Area, Mr. Harold Brooks, several members of our NERT team, and we will be hearing from Edie Schaffer a little bit later about the importance of NERT. We want to encourage all of our citizens to take advantage of that worthwhile program. We also have Una Gillies-Wheel from SAFE, the Safety Awareness for Everyone. And in addition, I did see Mr. Dick Morton, who represents SPUR today. He sits on the Disaster Preparedness Task Force. So thank you all for being here. We want to make sure that everyone is as safe as they can be. We know it's not a matter of if, but when, and we want to be as prepared as we can be. And it's important that we realize the importance of this pump station behind us. It's an old system. Like I've said many times, it's worth its weight in gold, and it needs to be a priority in our city to make sure that we will be adequately prepared in the event of the next earthquake. Thank you. And without further comments, I would like to introduce a man who I've had the pleasure of working for 6 years as the chief, someone that is a true visionary in our city on many levels, but particularly when it comes to public safety and getting the citizens involved to realize that part of being a good citizen here in San Francisco is to be a prepared citizen, our Mayor, Gavin Newsom.
Thanks, Chief. Thanks, Chief. Well, welcome, everybody, and I've got nothing to say because I think the Chief just said it all, except to say that now is the public's turn to step up to the plate this June and support a $412 million bond to help keep this system going. This is a system that is unique in this nation. It's a system that will be a godsend when the next quake hits San Francisco. I think the Chief appropriately underscored the expectation that we all have that within our lifetimes, and certainly if you listen to the geological surveys that have been done and the U.S. geological analysis that suggested there's a 63% probability in the next 30 years of a major earthquake here in the Bay Area, that we're going to experience that terror and that concern, and that this system becomes essential in terms of learning from the past and making sure that we don't make the mistake of the past of being unprepared to deal not just with the seismic activity, but the aftermath of that activity in the context of securing fate and future away from fires in the city. This system is, I think, part of the soul of the city. It's part of what makes San Francisco a special place, is that innovative spirit that brought this system together in the first place. This is a system that the Chief described, I think, quite eloquently, that though needs some love and attention. It needs at least $104 million of investment. It's appropriate that we're celebrating, incidentally, 104-year anniversary of the 1906 earthquake in the context of this $104 million commitment to revitalize the AWSS system. And it's also significant, I think, that the entire city family is here. And I want to just acknowledge, not just by name, but by the attribute of the work, the good effort that has gone into getting us this far, the outstanding leadership of Ed Lee, who led the charge with Ed Riskin on our 10-year capital planning efforts, to members of the Board of Supervisors that stepped up and stepped in to put that 10-year capital plan together in the first place. We never had one a number of years ago. Not only do we have a 10-year capital plan, but one of the things that makes that effort important is that we, every single year, have fully funded that 10-year capital plan, and we're on schedule. Let us not slip back by not leaping forward this June by supporting this bond. We did it with SF General Hospital last year. We've done it, incidentally, since 1989 by investing in over 180 city facilities. Close to 200 city facilities have been seismically upgraded, from our libraries to cultural centers, obviously to the work that is being done at San Francisco General Hospital, but the work that is almost complete with our skilled nursing facility, Laguna Honda Hospital, et cetera. We were much better prepared to date than we were in 1989, but we cannot forget the essential nature of the work that still needs to be done. Again, not just AWSS, but to secure our fire stations and to make sure that the police department is also secured. And that's why Chief Gascón is here, and that's why members of the Police Commission are here, in addition to the members of the Fire Commission that took the time to be here as well. I want to just close by thanking the Department of Emergency Services, DEM, and all the team that Vicki has put together for their outstanding leadership as well. When I became mayor, the Disaster Council hadn't met in 8 years. Our emergency operation plans were well over a decade old. We had an old siren system that we were going to take down from World War II that now has been upgraded. It's right above us, 91 other locations, I think, what, 92, 3 locations. We had half of the members of our neighborhood emergency response team trained. Now NERT, as the Chief said, close to 20,000 people trained, and we encourage people that want to learn more about NERT to call 311 and ask about how they can get trained and how they can be supportive of not just their family and themselves, but their neighbors and their community by being part of the first responders. We encourage people to go to 72hours.org. There's not just a booth here, but we encourage people at home to go to 72hours.org to take the San Francisco, what is it, the Quake Quiz? The Quake Quiz, which is another state-of-the-art, innovative website so that they can determine whether or not they're prepared for the next big earthquake. And that means not just prepared at home or at work, but prepared, for example, if they're walking in the park, what do you do? Or out on a beach In fact, part of the quake quiz is if I'm out there on Ocean Beach and there's a big earthquake, do I just sit back and say, boy, it's great to be out here on the coast and not around all these tall buildings, or do I prepare, Bill? Learn to swim. No, you learn to surf, not swim with a tsunami on your way. Anyway, not to alarm people, but these are the reasons you take, and Bill clearly needs to take that quake quiz. So go to 72hours.org, sign up for NERT, engage in the life of your community to make sure we're prepared for the next big one. Support our fire department, our police department, our Department of Public Works, and the good work that Department of Emergency Management is doing. And get out and vote, even though this is not a campaign event. I'm breaking the rules. Get out to vote in June on this extraordinarily important initiative that will preserve the fate and future of the auxiliary water supply system, all those great cisterns and this incredible gravity-fed system that a good Irishman, Chief Hayes White, conceived of in the early 1900s in 1903, and we are the beneficiary of it only if we maintain it. With that, having not maintained my limited time period, let me ask Supervisor David Chiu, who has led the charge at the Board of Supervisors, to support this effort and our collective efforts to make sure that we have something that we believe the voters will embrace and support, and ask him to come up to the mic and again acknowledge all his hard work on making sure this city is safe and prepared for the next disaster.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I also want to thank all of the men and women who are standing behind me. I have to say, if I took an earthquake quiz, this is the safest place to be right now if anything were to happen. We're obviously here for commemoration of what happened on April the 18th of 1906. And as I think about it, if we were to try to imagine, I think it's difficult to fathom what actually happened on that day. Just as it is difficult for us to fathom that in the first 3.5 months of 2010, we have seen earthquakes in Haiti, in Chile, in Turkey, in Taiwan, Indonesia, Mexico, and just yesterday in Spain. And as the mayor just said, a 63% chance over the next 30 years that the big one is going to hit us right here. Now, it's also difficult for us to imagine what it was like in San Francisco in the 19th century when fires burned down our city 5 times. 1906 was actually the 6th time. This building behind us is a commemoration of many things. It's a commemoration of the men and women who sacrificed their lives so that our city could be saved. It's also a commemoration to engineering marvel. If you go into this building, the technology that's in there was cutting edge, really world class at the time it was built in 1913. But we know 100 years later, this system is crumbling, and I'm so proud to join with the mayor and with most of my colleagues at the Board of Supervisors and with all of you in thinking about how are we going to rebuild the infrastructure of this system. We have procedures in place to take care of emergencies. We have protocols in place. We have done drills. But what we haven't done is we have not committed to reinvesting in this infrastructure. And so I very much, along with the mayor, hope that everyone will know what they're supposed to do in our June election. And I want to thank again all of the men and women behind me who are spending every single day to make sure that we are prepared for the big one and that we will be ready as a city, as a community, to come together so we can rebuild again. Thank you very much.
Who's next?
Next, I'd like to introduce a man that everyone knows, one of my colleagues in public safety, our Police Chief, George Gascón.
Thank you, Joanne. Good morning, everyone. I think today is a great moment because we're here to honor those that lost their life in 1906. But I think it's also important to remember that we have to be prepared. And preparedness is a shared responsibility. The men and women of the public safety team of the city and our political, our elected officials have done their part. We're preparing, we work hard, we train, we work together on a regular basis. It is also important for the community to recognize that it's a shared responsibility, and the community also has to step up to the plate. We, as individual residents and citizens of the city, have to prepare it, and we also have to take the necessary steps to make sure that collectively we're ready for the next big one, because the next big one will occur. It's just a matter of when. It's not a matter if it will occur. So hopefully we can use this event today to remind everyone that we have to work together to be prepared. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief. Next, I'd like to ask the Director of the Department of Emergency Management to come up and make some remarks. And I have to say, in Vicki Hennessy, also a public safety partner, she's done a tremendous job in bringing all of our agencies together, drilling together, training, making sure we're all on the same page so that we'll be more than prepared for you when the next disaster hits. Vicki.
Thank you very much. I'm pleased to be here today to support this effort. I was born in San Francisco. I live in San Francisco. And last week, I was very pleased to be able to take a tour of the AWSS. It is a phenomenal system. And with anything, it needs maintenance. And I want to echo everything that everybody has already said before me. But I also want to acknowledge the aspect of personal preparedness and personal responsibility to be prepared for any event. So as Chief Gascón said eloquently before me, being prepared, it's a shared responsibility. We as a city can be prepared, but we need every person, every resident, every visitor to San Francisco to do their part. And I hope you will visit our table over here today. Take some brochures, 72hours.org, available in 5 languages. We're doing our best to push this information out, but we can't make people do it. And we want people to understand it's part of their responsibility, collectively, individually. I also want to acknowledge our partners, particularly the Red Cross and NERT, the fire department, and all these great people that come out and work for NERT and work with us to be prepared in the city. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vicki. Excellent segue. I'd next like to introduce a person that has given a lot of her time and energy to our NERT program. That is Edie Schaffer. And before I call Edie Schaffer up, I would like to acknowledge Lieutenant Erica Arteceros of the San Francisco Fire Department for the coordination that she's provided for 6 years to the NERT program. I'm hoping today, Edie, as you're on your way up, you'll tell us a little bit about the story of Margaret Bishop, who was a city resident that now resides for the last 18 months in Haiti. And I believe she was a graduate of the NERT program South Beach in 2008. And when the earthquake struck in Haiti, she was able to put together some of the tools that she learned about and used in the NERT program and was able to do a lot of good in Haiti. So welcome, Edie.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Chief, and thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I'll just hold it. I don't know very much about Margaret other than I think you have a fabulous letter that she has written about how valuable NERT training was to her. And I think her words speak more eloquently than I could in describing how important NERT was for her. So yes, the history of our city teaches that earthquakes happen, and we can't stop that. But there is so much that we can do as individuals to ensure that we don't become victims in those quakes. And that's where the San Francisco Neighborhood Emergency Response Team, or NERT, steps up. When a severe earthquake strikes or any other disaster strikes our city, we know our first responders will quickly be overwhelmed. The more we know, us, regular folks like me and you, about how to take care of ourselves, the safer we will be and the quicker we'll recover as individuals and also as a city. NERT is the only organization in San Francisco that offers free, hands-on training about how to take care of yourself and your family members after a disaster. Our classes are offered by our city to anyone who lives or works in San Francisco. Free, as my grandma used to say, for free take. Our classes are taught by instructors from the San Francisco Fire Department, and let me tell you, they are the best. Don't let our name fool you. NERT is not just for those who want to assist their neighbors after a disaster. NERT is for anyone who wants to be able to take care of themselves and their family members. That's so important. We can't do it for you, but you can do it for yourself, and NERT will help you learn how. Now, when you join NERT, 3 things happen to you. First, you feel empowered to do things you never thought possible. Second, you meet some of the finest people in this city. And third, your family grows exponentially, because that's what NERT is. It's a family. Today and every day, we invite the people of this city to join our family. Thank you.
Well done. Anyone else?
No, no one else. All right. We're getting towards the conclusion, but what Edie talked about, the NERT program, I would recommend to anyone here in San Francisco. It's a great program. We're so proud of all of you that volunteer your time. There will be a NERT drill this Saturday if you want to come check it out on the 17th from 8:30 to 1 at Everett Middle School. I believe lots happening this weekend around preparedness. And then, of course, on the 18th, there will be many of us gathered at Lotta's Fountain at 3rd and Market in Kearney, commemorating the survivors. I think there will be one this year, as well as the men and women that gave their lives during the earthquake. The other thing is we will be having public tours, something that we don't usually do, this Saturday of our Twin Peaks Reservoir, which is on Marview Way and Farview Court up in Twin Peaks. It's 10,500,000 gallons. It's a very cool system. It's amazing to me that this was engineered and thought of over 100 years ago, and it is still functioning and still a very important part of our infrastructure. So that will be a tour at 9 o'clock and at 10 o'clock on Saturday the 17th up at Twin Peaks. And then we will have a 1 o'clock and a 2 o'clock tour here at Pump Station 2 so that you can gain a better understanding of the system, which is multifaceted and has many components to it. At this time, if anyone has any questions surrounding the preparedness efforts of our city, about the auxiliarized water supply system, any of us would be happy to answer them. Yes, sir.
How many jobs do you expect to create with the bond issue?
What's the latest count do we have, Ed, on the 412? So I know we had the original bond and we had the estimates, but we haven't adjusted down. Hundreds of jobs will be created, and presumably, if we get our act together, several thousand. But I think we sometimes overstate, don't we? I've got. You ever read the Feds, Ed Harrington? They give you for every $1 billion, it's 13,000 jobs, and then it's another billion, and then it's 26,000 jobs. Don't believe all that. It's conservatively and certainly the hundreds. Yeah. Thanks for reminding us of that important point. He should have been in the press conference, Carolyn.
Tough economy. Do
Yes.
you have a fallback plan should this not pass?
Always. We figure out. We'll work around it, but I'm hopeful. The city always steps up to the plate, particularly as it relates to seismic safety issues and issues of public safety generally. It's indelible in the consciousness of San Franciscans and appreciation for vulnerability and the magnitude of Mother Nature's fury. And I think now more than ever, as David and others said, with what has happened around the world and the catastrophic nature of some of these larger quakes, not least of which obviously in Indonesia and Chile and Haiti in particular, and obviously the southern part of the state of California impacted by the Mexican quake and other quakes that are raising attention. Just down in Southern California, there was an analysis today that they've had 2 times as many small earthquakes than is typical by this time this year. So, there's a sense that things are going on. Others saying, no, there's a big article in the New York Times said we're just, seismologists are using higher quality techniques to analyze quake activity, and the dissemination of information is the reason people are now more fearful that it's not necessarily the earth starting to break apart, that these are sort of historic trends. But one thing is for certain, 100 years overdue, this region, not just in the context of what happened with one fault, but the multiple faults from Hayward to the San Andreas that should make people really cautious and be prepared. It's beyond me. Let me mention one other thing. Alert SF. Text messaging, trust me, you'll regret not paying attention to the opportunity, because text, we saw this down in Katrina, phone systems go down, but you can still use your text. Get onto our Alert SF site so you can get text messages directly to you, which is important. It's done by zip code. It's a very thoughtful initiative. Get on this 72hour.org website. It's beyond me, again, that people haven't taken advantage of it. It's being replicated all over the country. It's a world-class site. You should do it as well. If you haven't done it, you will regret not doing it. Have you done it? You haven't. Exactly. Why? Why?
Just living on borrowed time.
We'll talk to you guys later. Anything else?
Thanks everyone. And I did also want to acknowledge the presence of 3 of my fire commissioners, the president of the commission, Steve Nicasio, Commissioner George Lau, and Commissioner Victor Macris, and also Commissioner David Onick, representing the Police Commission, my command staff, Engine 41, shout out to you. Thanks for coming out, and the fire boat. Thanks, everybody.